Okay, last part of the last part of the last part of the final assessment. Here is what I have for you. We'll go through the instructions to the final assessment. I think I have a link to it on my blog, so you'll be able to link to it and pull it up if you don't have it, or I can give you a copy of it at the end of class or sometime when we're not in the middle of instruction. So these are the standards that are addressed. I can cite text-based evidence to support an analysis of literary text. I can cite text-based evidence to support an analysis of informational text. That's the hero's journey. That's the lightning thief. Literary is lightning thief. Informational is the hero's journey. I can write informative explanatory text that convey ideas and concepts using relevant information that is carefully selected and organized. Basically, that just means you can write a decent paragraph that incorporates what you choose from the hero's journey and the lightning thief. I can use evidence from a variety of grade appropriate text to support analysis, reflection, and research. Your variety is going to come in the form of the hero's journey and the lightning thief. How do Percy's experience in chapter 8 align with the hero's journey? That is exactly what you did in the books and in this fun little chart here, if you did this. So it says, after reading pages 107 to 112 of chapter 8 in The Lightning Thief, complete the graphic organizer and write a constructed response that answers the questions and supports your position with evidence from the novel and from the informational text. So here are the directions that you are supposed to have read. Number 1 says, reread these 4 parts of the hero's journey before closely reading pages 107 and 112 in The Lightning Thief. This will help focus your reading as you find evidence. Now, if you remember, I gave you time to do this in class. And when I said take the next 15 minutes to read these 4 parts of the hero's journey, which is entering the unknown, supernatural aid, meeting with the mentor, and then going over to Act 2, which I have right here, in initiation and transformation, and that's this one. It's allies and helpers, and the road of trials. And the trials are the series of tests, tasks, or ordeals, and we read that in the second video when I went through the close reading of the hero's journey. That was all you were supposed to reread and become familiar with. And if you remember, when I asked you to do that in class, many people just took that an opportunity to have a conversation. So then when it came time to actually know what you're talking about with these 4 stages, not many people knew what they were supposed to do. So hopefully if you don't remember, go back to the videos of Act 1 and Act 2 and find where I do the close read of entering the unknown and supernatural aid, meeting with the mentor, allies and helpers, and the road of trials, and then you'll get the information on that. On the back here it says choose. So the first thing is that you've reread those 4 sections, those 4 stages. Choose one experience in The Lightning Thief and match it with the stage of a hero's journey. Gather evidence from The Lightning Thief. Gather evidence from the hero's journey. Complete part 1, the choosing evidence graphic organizer, which looks like this. And I have not filled it out for you here, but I do have an example paragraph that you are not going to copy word for word, but just use as an organization. You can use the sentence starters from some of my sentences, but do not write the exact same paragraph or you will not receive a grade for it. But this is the graphic organizer. This is where you put your information, just like you did in those books. Then you're just going to make an inference down here, and I'll help you. I'll give a little bit of information after I go over the section from chapter 8. So again, if you're not familiar with those 4 stages of the hero's journey, the entering the unknown, the supernatural aid, our meeting with the mentor, allies and helpers, and the road of trials, then you're going to need to go back and get familiar with that. Go back and watch the videos or read it on your own right now. I'm going to move on to the section of chapter 8, we capture a flag. I did some highlighting, not a ton, but I did some, just to kind of show you how you can pick out parts from chapter 8 and annotate them to align with different stages of the hero's journey. So I highlighted the next few days. I settled into a routine that felt almost normal, if you don't count the fact that I was getting lessons from satyrs, nymphs, and the centaur. So I put entering the unknown, and then I put learning the rules of this new world, because he's at Camp Half-Blood, and it is definitely a place filled with supernatural creatures. He needs to learn the rules of this place, and so I think that's a good example, a good quote that would go along with that. Now remember, your final idea is, or your final task is to choose one of those 4 stages and find a quote from the heroes, or from the lightning thief here from chapter 8, just these pages, and write a paragraph that shows how they align. But I'm going to go through and show you that I found some from a few different ones, just to kind of give you an idea, and then you'll come up with something to write it about. So you'll choose one of those 4. Okay, so the next one, the rest of the day I'd rotate through outdoor activities looking for something I was good at. I chose that, although there's a lot of examples and quotes in the rest of 107 and 108, but I just chose this to kind of start that off. So you can use this, or you can use any other one that you find down here if you decide to go with the road of trials. I put often a person fails one or more of these tests, because the trials, the road of trials, are tests, if you remember from the hero's journey. So that was that's what this was about, this quote here. And then there's a few more that go back to that, I think. So if we turn to page 108, I have, again, the road of trials and person often fails. I just put that part in quotes because that's the quote that I'm going to align it with if I decide to use that for my paragraph. I wasn't as strong as the Aries kids, or as good at archery as the Apollo kids. I didn't have Hephaestus' skill with metalwork, or, gods forbid, Dionysus' way with vine plants. Luke told me I might be a child of Hermes, a kind of jack of all trades, master of none. So he's finding out that he doesn't have a talent that is visible right then and there. So he's got to find a talent still. So then, the next quote, despite all that, I like camp. I got used to the morning fog over the beach, the smell of hot strawberry fields in the afternoon, even the weird noises of monsters in the woods at night. So again, I went back to entering the unknown with that one. I'm talking about the supernatural creatures, and then I drew an arrow down here saying that supernatural creatures was also talking about this quote, underneath it, if gods and monsters were real, if all this magical stuff was possible, surely there was some way to save her, to bring her back. And of course he's talking about his mom, Sally Jackson. So these are good quotes that would go along with that. So if we continue on to page 109, there is a quote here, and there's a whole section, this whole section where it talks about Luke and how he's teaching him these sword fighting techniques. That is meeting with the mentor, but I pulled out some good quotes to kind of go along with meeting with the mentor. So the first one, I had my first sword fighting lesson. Luke would be our instructor. We started with basic stabbing and slashing using some straight straw stuffed dummies in Greek armor. And then here, Luke showed me thrusts and parries and shield blocks the hard way. With every swipe I got a little more battered and bruised. So I have these being meeting with the mentor. This could also be a little bit of road of trials because he's still kind of finding his way. He's getting beat up by Luke here. And then I put the quote that I wanted to align that with because I wanted to make sure that I understood why I was highlighting that. So the quote from the hero's journey is, and I kind of did a paraphrase, but I still put it in quotes. Character who has mastered the laws of the outside world and has come back to bestow this wisdom upon them. So that's being Luke. He's serving as a mentor. We talk about Chiron being a mentor, but Luke is also kind of a mentor at the beginning of the book. Now we all know what happens at the end of it, but he is a mentor to Percy, especially in this scene, because he knows the rules of Camp Half-Blood. He knows the rules of battle. He's a great sword fighter. Actually, somebody says that he's the best sword fighter this camp has had in 300 years or something like that. And this part right here, I highlighted too for meeting with the mentor, where he says, this is difficult, I've had it used against me. No laughing at Percy now. So he is making Percy one of them then at Camp Half-Blood. Most swordsmen have to work years to master this technique. He demonstrated the move on me in slow motion. Sure enough, the sword clattered out of my hand. So then they do it in real time, and he's able to teach Percy this move. And that is proven, so I just put meeting with the mentor here for this one. That is proven on page 111 here. This was 110 when I talked about the demonstration of that technique. And then on page 111, this is where it's kind of proven. I tried the disarming maneuver. My blade hit the base of Luke's and I twisted, putting my whole weight into a downward thrust. Clang. Luke's sword rattled against the stones. The tip of my blade was an inch from his undefended chest. He also goes on to say, by the gods, Percy, why are you sorry? Show me that again. So that can be also play out with the road of trials, because he's kind of overcoming some of these obstacles and learning some stuff that's going to help him on his quest, which also then fits in to the meeting with the mentor that I put up here. So you can use that kind of in two ways if you wanted. And I put just a note for myself. Luke helps Percy use his abilities, ADHD. And we talked about that when we were putting the books together, and aligning those quotes from The Hero's Journey and The Lightning Thief in the books, that his ADHD, while it was frustrating for him in the ordinary world, is something that saves his life many times in, at Camp Half-Blood and then throughout his quest. Because his ADHD develops into his battle wits, his battle skills. Luke helps him develop them. He helps him realize his abilities and then develop them. And then one last thing on page 112 here, the part where he's talking with Grover, and he tells Grover that he knows that he's going for his searcher's license. And that he's struggling with it. And so I'll read this whole thing and then I'll point out the quote here. I'll read the whole paragraph. Grover looked down at the naiads. This is after Percy asks him, did you get the license? Mr. D suspended judgment. He said, I hadn't failed or succeeded with you yet, so our fates were still tied together. If you got a quest and I went along to protect you, and we both came back alive, then maybe he'd consider the job complete. So there's allies and helpers right there. Annabeth isn't mentioned in this, but she would be another ally or helper. But this is a great quote to use if you wanted to do allies and helpers. And some students, when they were doing this, also used some of these examples down here. They use Annabeth here for allies and helpers too. These quotes when she was trying to teach him more ancient Greek. So she also served as kind of a mentor or an ally or a helper to help him develop his dyslexia into being able to read ancient Greek. So you can also use that. So that was just a very quick overview of that. You are expected to do this on your own with the part that I gave you, which I think is missing 109, unfortunately. That talks about the beginning of that sword fighting lesson. But if you decide to go with meeting with the mentor, page 110, which you do have, is has that fantastic quote about him telling the people not to laugh and starting to teach, and then on 111 with the Percy demonstrating that battle technique and really impressing his mentor at this time. So that is what we have there. So we'll move on to the graphic organizer then. So what you're going to do then is you are going to find the quote from the lightning thief, and you're going to write that quote down here. So whichever one you want to go with, so you can decide which one you feel that you can talk about the best. Is it allies and helpers? Is it the road of trials? Is it entering the unknown? Is it meeting with the mentor or supernatural aid? So you've got a lot that you can choose from. There's plenty of quotes. There's a lot for meeting with the mentor, but there's really great quotes for the other ones too, so you can decide. So you got to write that stage, and that's the notes that you should have taken in the margins, mentioning the stages. So it's only one of those four that you were given the choice of in the example or in the instructions here. Then you would write that quote from the hero's journey, and you'd align them, both the quotes. So you'd find one of the quotes that you highlighted in the chapter 8, and then you'd go to your hero's journey and you'd find a quote that would go along with that. And then you're going to go and infer from this question and from the information that you gave up here. You can answer this question: what can we learn about Percy as a hero based on his response to a challenge he faces? So you're going to have to think about the challenge that he faces in the story, and the quote from the hero's journey, how those align, but also what his learning from whatever hardship that he experiences in this quote, what that tells you about him, how he develops as a hero that way, the positive qualities that it gives him. So you got to make an inference on that. You got to think a little bit about it. So I have an example paragraph that I wrote, and it's crazy highlighted, and I'm asking you, begging you, do not do that. The only reason why I highlighted is because I was showing that there are 1, 2, 3, 4 things that specific things that these instructions are asking you to do. So I'm going to read these instructions aloud to you right now so that you can see that, and you'll see which ones I aligned with my paragraph here. So it says part 2, paragraph prompt. How do Percy's experiences in chapter 8 align with the hero's journey? Same thing as like in the books. Do Percy's experiences in Lightning Thief align with the hero's journey? So how do they align with it? After reading the excerpts from chapter 8, which is right here, and of the Lightning Thief and the hero's journey, which is right here, write a constructed response that begins, there's your first thing that is asking you to do, begins with a short summary of the beginning of chapter 8. So you're just going to sum up those few pages that you read and annotated right here, from 107 through 112. So only those few pages. And in my paragraph, I wrote, in chapter 8, we capture a flag. Percy has begun to settle into Camp Half-Blood and into a routine. However, he is still struggling with the loss of his mother, and he is having a hard time figuring out his talents. So there's some challenges that he has. So I set up the challenge that that he experiences that I can talk about at the end when I make my inference. The next thing that we're supposed to do, then focus on one experience in the Lightning Thief. So if we know from the books and from what we did, looked at for the instructions of this assessment, that when we're looking for experiences, we're looking for quotes. So I have them highlighted in yellow here, and then I have the part that I wrote highlighted in yellow here. So it says, one example in chapter 8 that shows Percy on a hero's journey is his coming to this new setting. Talking about Camp Half-Blood. In the Lightning Thief, it says, and then I put my quote, and then here's how I set it up. In the Lightning Thief, it says, it's fine right there. In the Lightning Thief, it says, despite all that, I liked camp. I got used to the morning fog over the beach, the smell of hot strawberry fields in the afternoon, even the weird noises of monsters in the woods at night. So that's the quote I used, because that explains the hero, that part of the hero's journey, which I have up here then highlighted in pink, although it kind of looks orange, but it was pink. Show how Percy's experience aligns to a stage in the hero's journey. So you have to talk about the stage, and I have that highlighted in pink in mine. Again, I'm reminding you not to highlight. This aligns to the entering the unknown stage in the hero's journey. In the hero's journey, it says, and here's my quote, right? I did the same thing as I did up here. In the Lightning Thief, it says, in the hero's journey, it says, the heroes enter a world they have never experienced before. This "the" should actually be capitalized. The heroes enter a world they have never experienced before. It might be filled with supernatural creatures, breathtaking sights, and the constant threat of death. So, as you read further in We Capture the Flag, yes, he gets injured quite badly before he's able to get to the water. So he has a constant threat of death there. Entering the unknown, the supernatural creatures. So we talk about the monsters in the woods at night. I also actually wrote that when I highlighted that quote in the Lightning Thief. I put supernatural creatures there. So that automatically brought me back there when I was writing this paragraph. All right, and then the last thing. Conclude by describing what we can learn about Percy as a hero from his response to a challenge he faces. And then use evidence from both texts, which we did. So that's highlighted in green. And on the bottom here I put, after my quote from the hero's journey, I wrote, Percy is surrounded by supernatural creatures, like monsters, and cool sights, like the field of strawberries. And he's definitely scared he's going to die. Percy's response to this challenge shows that he is a hero who can adapt to new and difficult challenges. So there's the end of my paragraph there. You can use it to organize yours, but do not write exactly what I've written here. You can decide to use that quote and that stage of entering the unknown, but there are plenty of other quotes that you can choose for that. But I would encourage you, because I did this, I would encourage you to try to choose one of the other three. Meeting with the Mentor has a lot of quotes. And then you just have to use your own inference for the green part down here, or for the part that says conclude by describing what we can learn about Percy as a hero from his response to the challenge he faces. That's going to be your own thoughts going there. Everything else, you're synthesizing the quotes from the hero's journey and the lightning thief to show that you can, to demonstrate that you know how they align. And that's it. Once you're done with that, you can hand it in to me. Work hard, get it in by Friday, and you will receive a fantastic grade. Say hello to my cat. That's Sprint. All right, goodbye.